Hi, it's August 2023. I've just arrived back in Okehampton on the edge of North Dartmoor, and I'm going to spend 3 days walking down to the seafront at Plymouth. So the first part of the walk, I'm heading up to High Willowes, and then from there I'll be heading over to Lidford, and then just south of Lidford I'll be camping for tonight. So from here I'm heading up to the moors. I'm going past the army camp, I think. So like I mentioned on my last video, on North Dartmoor there's a large army firing range, and quite often they have firing exercises up on the moors, and on those days of course the whole area is closed to the public, so it's always strongly recommended when going on North Dartmoor, just go online and just Google Dartmoor firing times to find out when it's okay to come up here. And this week there's no firing at all, so I've got plenty of time to cross the firing range. I think that's Yes Tor and High Willowes just up in the distance. Just arrived at Road Tor. Sun's just coming out, so just going to have a little sit down, and I think that's Yes Tor just up there. That's actually West Mill Tor. Yes Tor is the next one along, so I'm just going to follow this track and then head up to Yes Tor, and then from there just go over to High Willowes. Just approaching Yes Tor, so a little bit of music trivia. Yes Tor once featured on the front of an album, so people of a certain age may remember during the 1970s there was a prog rock band called Yes, and in their time they were quite a big band. In 1978 they released an album, and the original title for the album was going to be Yes Tor, but they changed the title to Yes Tomato. And the story behind that is, well, the keyboard player of the band, Rick Wakeman, he had a look at the artwork for the album cover, and he didn't like it, and he threw a tomato at it and splattered tomato all over the artwork. And the other band members looked at the artwork then, and they thought it actually looked better with the tomato all over it. So they decided to change the name from Yes Tor to Yes Tomato. I think the album actually did quite well. It went to about number 8 in the album chart. Wow, it's a little bit breezy up here, so now it's just a short walk now over to High Willowes, just to the south. So High Willowes is 621 metres above sea level, and it's the highest point south of the Brecon Beacons. For a long time everybody thought that Yes Tor was the highest point, but that's 619 metres, so High Willowes is the highest by 2 metres. high willows, I have to head down to the West Okehampton River, which hopefully I can cross. And then I'm heading up to my next tour. I think it's Kitty Tour. And then from there, I'm hoping there's a path which leads all the way to Lidford. Just arrived at the West Okehampton River. So this flows down to Okehampton, and it meets up with the East Okehampton River, and then I think it heads down to the River Torridge, and then onwards to Biddeford in the Atlantic. So from here I'm just following the hill up to Kitty Tor. Well, that walk up from the river was quite a steep climb, but I'm just going to have a little break now. Then I'll be heading onwards to Widgery Cross. It's a huge cross on a tor that I think they put it up in 1887 to celebrate Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. So I'm just going to have a little sit up here, admire the view, and then continue. Getting a little bit overcast now, a bit dark, but I think I'm about 4 or 5 miles from where I'm camping tonight, so should be there in about a couple of hours. Just arrived at Widgery Cross. So I guess this is looking westwards towards Cornwall. I think I'm heading in that direction now. I'm heading down towards Lidford, and there's a big hill just south of Lidford called GIBBET Hill. I'm hoping to camp either up there, or there's a disused mine nearby called Wheel Betsy. So I've got a choice of those two places tonight. Just arrived in Lidford. It's a very small place. I don't think there's any shops. There might be a small community shop or something like that, but there's a pub and a few houses. They do have a old ruined castle here in Lidford. I think it's from the 12th century. I'm just going to have a look at the information board. So Lidford Castle was built in 1195. It's open to the public. I'm just going to have a quick look around. I think Lidford started life as a Saxon settlement. And it was actually attacked by the Vikings in 997 AD, because they sailed up the Tamar and the River TAVY, and they attacked Tavistock and Lidford. And of course, about 70 years later, the Normans came, and there's actually the remains of a a small Norman fort which they built here. I'm just going to pop over. It's on the other side of the church. So in 1068, just after the Norman conquest, there was a big rebellion in Devon against the Normans. And so the Normans, they sent a big army down here and they defeated the rebellion. And they built this, they built a small fort in Lidford, and there's nothing of it standing today. It's overlooking the Lidford Gorge, but you can still see the earthworks that they would have built here. There's an information board, so I'll just have a look at that. That's the Lidford Gorge down there. I've heard it's very scenic, but I won't have time to have a look at it on this walk. But I'm just standing where the Norman fort in Lidford would have been. So that's the defensive ditch down there. And I guess up here they would have had a defensive wall. So now I'm just going to continue walking up to GIBBET Hill and hopefully find a nice place to camp tonight. Oh, they put up a very nice commemorative stone here to mark the battle in 997 when the Vikings attacked Lidford. Just arrived at GIBBET Hill, just between Lidford and TAVY. So this place has got a very grisly history, because a gibbet, it's kind of like the gallows. And in the 18th century, in this area, they had a big problem with highwaymen on the Plymouth to Okehampton road. And back then, the punishment for highway robbery was the death penalty. And so they would hang people, the convicts, they would be hung from this gibbet. I'm not sure if it was on top of the hill or nearer to the road. And they would be there as like a deterrent to other people not to commit highway robbery. But of course, that's all gone now, and there's just a Creek Point at the top. And all of GIBBET Hill is a wild camping zone, so I can now camp wherever I like. But I know I might camp at the top. There's a trig point, and I don't think there's going to be many people going up there now, so I might just put a tent up near the trig point and get a nice view. But I know on the other side of the hill there's some disused mine workings, so there might be a big spoil heap I can camp behind, for a bit more secluded. But I'll see what it's like when it's up there, when I get up to the top. Just arrived at the top of GIBBET Hill. Really fantastic views here. I'm hoping there's a nice sunrise tomorrow morning, because you can see for miles from here it look really picturesque. You can see all Dartmoor in the distance. So I'm now just going to have a little look around and find a nice little flat spot to put the tent up for tonight. So I didn't have to look very far to find the ideal camping spot for tonight. On top of the hill there's this lovely little dip in the hill, and there's a nice pond here. There's some very flat ground, no stones, and it's very out of the wind. So this will be where I'll be camping tonight. So I think that it will be a sunset in less than 2 hours, so it'll be quite dark in about a couple of hours. So I'm just going to chuck everything in the tent and then cook something and then settle down, listen to the radio. I think there might be a phone signal up here, so I can listen to digital radio on the internet, which will be quite nice. So anyway, that's a good day, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. So until tomorrow morning, good night. Oh well, no glorious sunrise this morning, It's a little bit misty, but I think the weather forecast today, it's clearing up a bit. It's just going to be cloudy with a bit of sunshine. So this morning I'm heading down to TAVY, and from there I'm heading back up onto the moors. I'm going to have a look at the MERRIVALE stone row. I mentioned that in my last video when I was on Dartmoor, so looking forward to seeing that. And then I'll be heading down to Sheep's Tor, where I'll be camping tonight. Right, so that's everything packed. So I'm just going to head down to TAVY. I'm using an app these days. It's called COMBE, spelled K-O-M-O-O-T. It's a hiking app, and I quite recommend it because I'd bring a map and compass, but my navigating isn't that brilliant. And this is a godsend. All you do is just type in where your start point and your end point, and then it just works out a route, and you just follow the little blue line, and it works off when there's no phone signal as well. And one thing I like about it, people can add points of interest. So a lot of the information I get while hiking, like at Widgery Cross, that's from other people. They'll take a photograph of it and then they'll upload that onto the COMBE app and then write some stuff about it. So it saves having to Google about a lot of these places I visit. I just have a look on the COMBE app. So yeah, weather's starting to clear up nicely. I've just arrived in TAVY. There's a little convenience shop down there which will be quite handy, but I've got everything I need for this walk, so I'll be just heading on. So I'm heading for the River Tavy, and from there I'll be heading for the village of TAVY. Just arrived at the River Tavy. Just arrived in the village of TAVY. So from here I'll be heading up to the moors, going up to MERRIVALE. I've just arrived at my first tour of the day. This is COMBE tour. Some really nice views looking out over the west. I can see a piece of TAVY down in the valley. I'm just approaching MERRIVALE and the B road that goes across Dartmoor. I've got quite a lot of time actually. It's only about a 13 or 14 mile hike today, and a lot of the routes it seems quite easy, so I should be able to make quite good time. I'm just going past, I think that's Ruse Tor on the left. I'm just going to go up there, have a little 30-minute break, and then maybe just see what the scenery is like up there. I think this is Staple Tor. I think Ruse Tor is just to the north of here. But I'm just following the path down to the B road, so it's quite easy route this. think over in the distance, I think I can just see the Tamar River. I think that's Plymouth, it's just over there. So that'll be a nice walk tomorrow morning, all downhill. So we're just going to have a tea break. It's very difficult planning routes on places like Dartmoor or the Lake District, because I plan like a 15-mile walk, and I think, oh, I can whiz through that and get there by lunchtime, but then I find it's all really steep hills or really boggy land. Now I've done about 7 miles, I think, or I've had enough for today, but this is quite an easy route, so I can really take my time going to Sheep's Tor. So just down there it's the B road, and on the other side will be the Merrivale Stone Rose. And this is looking eastwards. This is the valley I came up this morning from TAVY. I've just arrived at Merrivale Stone Rose, and these are 2 stone roads. One measures around 260 metres and the other is about 180 metres, and they're believed to date back to around 2500 BC. And I think in the centre of this one there is a small kist, so I'm just going to wander over and have a look. So right in the centre of the south row is this kist, and the kist was a burial chamber. They would have dug a hole and then put stones, large flat stones around the sides, and then they would have put a large capstone on top. So it's quite possible that this would have been, the stone rose would have been used as for a funeral ritual. There's a much larger kist just to the right of this stone row. I'm just going to have a look at that now. So this is a very good example of a Bronze Age kist. Still got the huge capstones on top. And not far from the stone rows there's one of Dartmoor's many stone circles from the Bronze Age, and also a very large standing stone. I've just put my backpack beside the standing stone to give an idea of how big it is. It must weigh a few tons. If I've got time today, I hope to go over to the DRIZZLECOMBE stones, because the standing stone there, it's the biggest one on Dartmoor. So hopefully I'll be quite early. I can just go over there before I go up to Sheep's Tor. So from here it's just a 6-mile walk to Sheep's Tor. So nice easy stroll for the rest of the afternoon. Just arrived at Black Tor. I think this might be the last tor before Sheep's Tor. I should be able to see it quite soon. It might be just over there on the horizon. It's just to the east of Tor Reservoir, Well, I know it's a popular camping spot. People like to camp there. You get a really nice view over the reservoir and the surrounding countryside. So should be there pretty soon. This is Devonport Leet. So I'll be following the Leet for a couple of miles now. I'm just approaching Stan Lake Plantation. It's getting quite warm now, so it might be quite nice to be in the shade of the trees for a while. Well, that's a bit of a climb from the reservoir, but the views certainly make up for the walk getting up here. I'm changing my plans a bit tonight because it's still quite early. It's only 3:20 and it doesn't really get dark until 9 o'clock. So I think I'm going to have a little break. Then I'm going to carry on down to the DRIZZLECOMBE Stones, which is just to the east of here, because just after the DRIZZLECOMBE Stones there is a camping area and there's a stream, so I think I'm just going to head over there. Plymouth is just over there. I think tomorrow it's just a 14-mile walk, and a lot of that is along nice flat footpaths, so that should be quite a nice walk tomorrow. There's Burrator Reservoir, and just up there, that's where I came this morning. Just arrived at the DRIZZLECOMBE Standing Stones. So at DRIZZLECOMBE there's quite a lot of Bronze Age remains. There's a lot of activity here during the Bronze Age. This is one of the stone rows, and I'm just following it up to the terminal stone, and I think they call it the bone rock because it looks a bit like a bone, but this is the highest standing stone on Dartmoor. This is the main DRIZZLECOMBE standing stone. I'll put my backpack there to give an idea of how big it is, but it's 4.2 meters high. I think last time I was here I knew how much it weighed, but I'm guessing it must weigh a few tons. And this is just one of many of the old Bronze Age remains here, so there must have been a huge settlement. It's right next to the River Plym, so I guess they would have used that as their water supply, and so all around here there would have been the Bronze Age settlement, because just up here there's the remains of a few roundhouses, so that would have been where they lived. There's 3 stone rows altogether, and the there's two parallel ones here, the top two stone rows. There's a cairn, a burial chamber at the top of each one. Well, it's 5 o'clock now, and just to the northeast of the DRIZZLECOMBE stones, I'm heading back into a wild camping area. So I think what I'm going to do now, I'm heading down to the River Plym. I'm just going to follow that up until I find a nice flat place just by the river, and I think that'll be where I'll be calling it a day for today. I'm just within the wild camping zone, and I've found a really nice place to put the tent up by the river. Very nice flat spot. So I'm going to settle down now, and tomorrow morning I'm heading back to the DRIZZLECOMBE rock, and then I think it's about 14 miles to Plymouth seafront. And I think the weather's going to be nice as well again tomorrow, so that's pretty good. So anyway, until tomorrow morning, good night. Sun just coming up, so pretty soon I'll be packing up and then heading back down to the DRIZZLECOMBE stone and then down to Plymouth. Just gone 7 o'clock and it's getting quite warm already. So I've packed everything up and now I'm heading back down the valley. Today's plan, I'm coming down off the moors. I'm heading for it's a disused railway line. It's the old railway line that went from Plymouth up to Okehampton. And it's been converted into a footpath and a cycle path. And it's a very nice route. So I'll be coming down, I think from Shaw Prior, it's a small village, and then onto the cycle path. Just arrived back at the DRIZZLECOMBE stones again. There's a big mound just over there. I think that's called the Giant's Basin. That's quite a large burial chamber that they would have used during the Bronze Age. It's just arrived back at the DRIZZLECOMBE bone. I think when people were living here during the Bronze Age, the environment on Dartmoor would have been completely different to what it is today. Because just after the Ice Age, during the Mesolithic period, that was a time of when the climate was rapidly warming and Dartmoor became completely covered with forest. I think they're not sure whether the higher parts were still heathland, but most of Dartmoor was forest. So when people started to become the early farmers, they gradually started to clear the forest. But of course back then that would have been absolutely hard work. So when people were living here, it's quite possible that all around this settlement, this would have been all forest. And they would have had this huge clearing here leading down to the river. So some nice panoramic views to start the day. That's looking north, so that's the direction I came down yesterday. It's very peaceful on Dartmoor. It's one of the first things I noticed coming up here. So anyone with a stressful job, this is the ideal place to come up for the weekend and get away from it all. Just over there, that's the southwest. I can see the coast, so I think Plymouth is in that general direction, so that's where I'm heading for now. So it looks like it's all down here from here. I'm beginning to get a better view of Plymouth now. I can just see the outskirts just over there. I'm just approaching Jewstone Rock. Wow, some fantastic views looking southwest towards Plymouth. So this will be my last tour of the walk. There's a village called Shaw Prior, I think that's how it's pronounced, but I'll be heading there, and then I'll be going on to the disused railway line cycle path down to Plymouth. I've just arrived at the cycling and walking route from Plymouth up to Okehampton. So this was the old railway line. Nice view from this viaduct. It's a very shaded walk this, which is quite nice because I'm starting to get a little bit sunburnt now. I'm about 6 miles from Plymouth Hoe, so I'm about 6 miles from the seafront. So this marks the end of the disused railway line walk. So from here I'll just continue on. There's a footpath that follows the River Plym right down to Plymouth Sound. Just arrived back on the River Plym, so I'll be following the footpath which follows the river down to the seafront. I've just arrived at the Barbican on the Plymouth seafront. So of course Plymouth is well known for being the departure port for the pilgrims when they went to America on the Mayflower in 1620. And just here is the gateway where they left on September the 16th, 1620. So this is the departure gate where the Mayflower left from. So from here, I'm just going to continue along up towards the the Plymouth Hoe. Another famous historical event which happened in Plymouth was in July 1815. So, following the Battle of Waterloo in June 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte tried to escape to the USA, but all the French ports were blockaded by the Royal Navy. So he eventually surrendered, and he was taken in a Royal Naval ship over to Torbay, and then from Torbay he was taken over to Plymouth Sound, where the ship was stayed in harbour for about 10 days. And while the ship was in Plymouth Sound, thousands of people would sail out to try and get a glimpse of him, and he would spend the day going up and down the deck waving to everyone. He was a bit of a celebrity while he was here. And then after his stay in Plymouth, the ship went down to St Helena, where he spent the rest of his life living in exile. There's a small commemorative stone nearby. I'm just going to have a look. So this is the stone dedicated to the time when Napoleon Bonaparte spent in Plymouth. And this is a painting which depicts all the people sailing out to get a glimpse of Napoleon Bonaparte.
Let me see how it
Just arrived at Smeaton Tower on Plymouth Hoe. So Plymouth Hoe is this lovely bit of high ground overlooking this sea. Some really nice views from here. So this is where I call it a day and head back home on the train and plan my next little walk. So thank you very much for watching my video, and I hope to upload another one soon. Bye.